We have to really look at, how did I get here in the first place? Like, what habits do I have? What's my mindset? What am I thinking about all this stuff? How did I get here?
I think that's huge. It's that idea of, when you're in that relationship breakup phase where you're talking about and really thinking about your relationship with things, it's about why are you acquiring things and why are you having difficulty letting go of things? But really it is about the behavior and the habit that got you in that situation in the first place. Energy that you have in your home, when you can walk into your home and say, I feel restored when I'm here. I feel relaxed when I'm here. This is the place I want to be. You get fiercely protective of that. And so your acquisition of things kind of changes at your core level. You think differently about what you bring into your home at that point.
Welcome to Drinks with the Girls. Conversations for women over 40 around connection, change, and the power of female friendship. Living well with stories to tell. I'm Karen, and this is Lisa.
We are moms and solopreneurs stepping into our own, diving into real conversations about things that matter to women in midlife.
We're here to spill the tea on everything that affects women in their 40s and beyond. Topics like loss and grief, changing relationships, launching kids, menopause, and reinventing ourselves in midlife. We are here to tackle it all.
Connect with us through a blend of our lived experiences, our friendship, the memory of our moms, plus a collection of real stories, honest conversations, and engaging interviews that will make women over 40 feel seen and remind them that they're not alone on this journey called life. Let's go.
Welcome back to another episode of Drinks with the Girls. I am Karen, and today I am drinking a Michelob Ultra.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Damn, girl.
Hey, don't judge.
Like, you do know they make like craft beers and stuff, right?
I don't like craft beers. I want a simple...
How are we friends?
I was sitting outside. It was gorgeous outside, and the sun was out, and that's what I felt like. So stop judging.
I'm not judging much. I just think you can do better. Oh, girl, you need to come to the Northwest. Let me rock your world. So I'm drinking like the absolute, like opposite bourgeois Sauvignon Blanc with some seltzer. I believe it's blueberry lemonade. So super excited. We have another fabulous guest on the podcast, and we've been wanting to get this super duper person on for a while. She's actually going to be with us for a couple of episodes because she's that good. So I am introducing my awesome friend, Natasha Kolehmainen, and I will let her tell you obviously what she's drinking and why she's here.
All right. Well, hi, Lisa and Karen. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast to talk about one of my favorite topics, decluttering. But I'm going to start with telling you what I'm drinking because this is important. So it is.
Yes, it is.
It is 8:00 here on the West Coast. Actually, a little after 8:00. No, East Coast. I'm on the East Coast. You're on the West Coast.
Welcome to our world.
Exactly. And Lisa knows I have serious difficulty with time zones. So I always have to confirm with her, what is my time? I don't care what time it is on your end. I want to know what my time is. So and I know our listeners can't see this, but I am drinking my lemon water, which is a nightly ritual for me, without the magnesium right now, because that will put me to sleep. But I am drinking my nightly lemon water in a Smith College.
Yes, baby.
China mug or porcelain. I don't know. I don't actually know what it's made of. But the pattern is the Smith College pattern. And this is important because Lisa and I's connection is through Smith College. And that is how the universe put us together. So I am drinking this tonight in honor of that connection.
Aw. Okay, I have a question. This is a very important question.
Mm-hmm.
Did you steal it from the dining room or did you buy it as an alum? Because there's two camps, and I'll explain that in a minute.
Neither, technically. I just went to my 30th college reunion in May, and this was in the gift bag.
Okay, that's super cool. Yeah, Smith actually has its own China pattern. It was a thing, right? But I actually had a friend, I swear to God, that like every day over her 4 years stole one piece of the dishware and graduated and then served her parents, I swear to God, Thanksgiving dinner on her full set of Smith China. So she definitely got her tuition's worth on that.
Absolutely. I mean,
But
stealing
anyways.
it was a thing, for sure.
Yeah, you got
but
like props that way.
I did not steal it, nor did I buy it.
Okay, well, there you go. So technically you don't need to declutter it, which brings us back.
It does. Full circle.
Natasha, thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited to hear your story and your tips. And for anybody who listened to our part 1 of decluttering, you know that I need this episode. So, Natasha, let's dive in. Let's start with your story. Let's talk about the impact of clutter. You told Lisa and me that your home office once felt suffocating and that you even avoided being there. Can you tell us more about how you got to that point and like what sparked your journey toward decluttering?
I can write those words and I can think them in my head, but hearing them out loud is actually really a little bit hard because that is how I felt about my home. I felt suffocated when I was in it. And that was my reality back in around 2015. And it traced back to the event that in 2010, my partner, my current husband, that sounds like I might have another one later. But anyway,
the night is young. It's fine.
My husband moved in with me at the time. We were just dating, and my twins, and he also had 2 kids. And the move was rather abrupt and fast. Some life things happened, and we basically had a couple weeks to make this decision and have him move in. I already had a full household. I had divorced about 3 or 4 years earlier, had set up my own household with my kids. So basically, we just brought in an entire household worth of stuff.
Holy moly.
Household that was already full. So that was a lot. And life is busy. We have 4 kids between the 2 of us. We both work full time. Fast forward about 5 years, the stuff kept coming in and really none of it was going out. In fact, most of it was just going out into the garage or into the basement. I hadn't parked my car in the garage in years. The basement was basically a huge fire hazard and it required parkour skills to get anything that you needed to get. Like literally you went to the bottom of the steps and there was just stuff. Like you couldn't get anywhere. Unfortunately, at the time, my coping strategies were limited, to say the least. And so I would avoid being at home by going to Target and walking around to make me happy because things made me happy. And that's probably a whole nother episode. But basically in 2015, I was just at the point where I was often crying myself to sleep at night. It was so overwhelming to be in my physical space. So we just decided on what I call the nuclear option. And we literally sold everything. We sold the house. We sold everything in the house. We moved from a 3,600 square foot, 4-bedroom home into an 1,100 square foot, 3-bedroom apartment. It was a journey.
Talk about ripping the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. It was literally the nuclear option.
I'm remembering when you were in that apartment and I just remember you feeling freed, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know you much when you were in your old house, but you just had this look of relief on your face. And I was like, how do you feel? And you were like, oh my God, it's the best. Like I just felt like the decision was kind of made for you and you didn't have to like angst over it,
That's retrospect, right? Like, so in the moment, it was incredibly stressful, but I look back at it now as being probably one of the best decisions I made in my entire life.
I know you've mentioned before the adjusted version of the Marie Kondo method. We've talked about that a little bit on the show, but talk to us about your version.
So I really did start kind of with Marie Kondo methodology. I had books on organizing. It really did help me at the start, but I did have to adjust it a little bit. And it was around the idea of question whether or not an item sparks joy. For me, I could convince myself that all of these items sparked joy. I mean, I literally had every piece of paper, everything my children had created for their entire lives, really. Like I had bins and bins and bins, and it was all very kind of labeled and organized, quote unquote. The question about whether it sparked joy didn't lead me to the answer that I needed to have in order for me to let go of it. So I started to ask myself if someone else would feel joy if I let it go. For me, that shift was kind of the gate that opened up the possibility of letting go of things that really I had a kind of deep connection to. An example I'll give you is books. I was a reading specialist. I was a literacy specialist and had hundreds, if not thousands of books. There were children's books, there were chapter books, there were young adult fiction, things I had read with my children, things that I had read with my students, and literally probably over 1,000 books. Whole wall full of bookcases filled with them all neatly displayed. And every time I looked at them, I felt joy, right? There was an emotional connection to all of them. But I realized that they were also a huge amount of the volume in my house that needed to be let go of. So I realized that somebody else could read these books if I let them go. I wasn't going to read them again, most likely. And I knew just from reality, right, that there are plenty of people who can't afford to go to Barnes & Noble and drop $150 every Thursday at Story Hour. And so my primary way of kind of releasing the emotional attachment I had to these books was to realize that when I did, somebody else would get joy by my choice to let them go. Along those lines, I kind of flexed that muscle of realizing that my memories and my connection to the, reading with my kids in bed, all of that wasn't dependent on me actually keeping the physical book that we read together. After that, each category, and we'll talk about categories as a way of purging and letting go of things. Each category after that got a little easier.
That is so helpful for me because my problem with my decluttering is the emotional connection. And we talked about that in the last episode, just these emotional connections that we have to things. So, Natasha, can you tell us about the research and the science behind how clutter affects us, especially our mental health? Because I find this fascinating.
Yeah, so this is the part I didn't know when I was going through this process. I was really flying on instinct and intuition and, adapting some things that I had read. But it's really important, I think, and what I learned in this process is that trusting my intuition and my instinct is something I needed to do more of. However, after I got through it, I wanted to understand why the release and that freedom that I felt when we were all the way through this process, why did that happen? What was the mechanism that led to such a transformative experience? And so I dug into some of the research and I talked to people. What I learned and what I've continued to learn, because kind of like you said, the area that I help women, especially in, my coaching business and how they transform their lives is letting go of things. And so what I learned primarily are three things. One, visual clutter overextends our cognitive load. We only have so much cognitive working memory at any given time. When our physical space is cluttered and has a lot of things in it, that takes up cognitive bandwidth, right? Because our visual processing is taking that all in and our brain is having to work with it. And so when we have less stuff, literally in our visual field, we are releasing that cognitive space to do something else with our brain. It's kind of the phenomenon we have when we drive to a new place and it feels like it takes longer to get there than it takes to get back. Because what's happening on your way there, your brain is taking in all of this visual stimuli that's new. And then when you're coming back from that place, your brain doesn't have to process all of it the second time because it's seen it once before.
That's so cool. I've always wondered, I didn't even know that there was like a cognitive reason for that. That is so cool.
Yeah, it is. And once you know that, you realize that what's happening more often. The other thing, and I think this is really the most kind of probably pertinent thing to your audience, and certainly why this experience was so much more impactful for me than it was for my husband, is that the burden of keeping the mental inventory of all of the stuff in your home tends to fall on the woman in the relationship, or, in a relationship, a same-sex relationship, it might be one person is more likely to take that responsibility on. The science says that women are more likely to kind of take that inventory, and my husband never knows where anything is. And I know where everything is, right? And there's memes about it all over the place about how all you have to do is ask the mom and the family where the thing is, and they'll tell you on this shelf behind this. So in that regard, simply having less stuff requires us to spend less of our mental capacity keeping an inventory of it. That's kind of simple and fairly obvious once you think about it, but it is a big part of our mental load when we're having to keep track of where literally everything in our house is and what we have.
I can picture that meme, and it's like the kids go to ask dad, where are the Band-Aids? And then dad's like, ask mom.
Exactly.
And then, of course, they go to mom, and mom knows exactly where they are.
Yeah, or the whole like, where is it? And they're staring like right at it, right? That's my world.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, we'll talk about that a little bit later in the podcast because there's a thing about that too. The last of the three things that I learned, and this is a little bit woo-woo, but bear with me.
We love the woo.
Yeah, we're here for the
Good.
woo.
Good. So I think the word is kind of metaphysical, but the idea is that everything in our home has energy associated with it. Everything's made up of atoms floating around, right? And so there's energy attached to everything, literal energy and probably kind of woo-woo energy, right? Having a lot of stuff in your house is not only kind of disrupting or constricting that energy flow, but it also might be making you sick. So one of the things that I experienced as we were cleaning out our house and getting rid of like all those books I loved, when I literally took all those books off the shelves and started sorting them and figuring out, which library to donate them to or which school to donate them to, I got sick. I got a horrible respiratory infection. What I realized, and I got sick again when we were going through every single piece of paper that my children had ever created, is that all of this stuff was holding moisture and mildew and dust. And literally all of my stuff was contributing to an unhealthy environment in my home. And I certainly didn't want to, continue that pattern because that's not great.
Well, and that's what the Chinese talk about when they talk about feng shui. I mean, I don't know much about that, but that's kind of what's behind it, right? That whole energy piece. I don't know. I don't know if you know much about that, but I wonder if that's the connection.
I think it is. I mean, I don't know about it at an intellectual level other than, kind of seeing stuff out and about, but that idea of, creating flow in your room so that the energy can get through it and doesn't get trapped, that idea. And for me, that bore out in the reality of having that space be something different and now wanting to protect my current space to make sure it never goes back to that.
My name is Karen Shatafian, and I am a shameless coffee addict and empowerment coach for women, and my love language is authenticity. My mission is helping women unapologetically design a life they're in love with. Because what the hell are we waiting for? My website, KarenShatafian.com, has all my coaching packages and free offers like my midlife reclamation guide. In it, you'll find tools to help you decide how to create the most inspired and empowered version of yourself and your life. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram talking about ways women can show up for themselves after decades of showing up for everyone else. Join me as we throw off the shackles and live our best freaking lives. See the show notes for all the details. Cheers! So tell us more about the energy shift that happens when we start to declutter, because you've talked about making space for the life that you want and the person that you want to become. And this is totally my jam because I help women step into the next best version of themselves. And I love, 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 love how decluttering is literally making space for this next best version to emerge.
Absolutely, Karen. For many women, their stuff is actually keeping them trapped in the past or in the life they currently have, not the one they want in the future. When I was trapped in that house with all that stuff that represented my past, I couldn't see my future. All I could see was the stuff all around me. And I felt trapped, as I mentioned. The process of actually letting go ended up being a ritual of letting go of the past and preparing for the next stage of my life. At the time, my kids were teenagers. We were starting to kind of think about the idea that in a couple of years, they were going to go off to college, hopefully. And they ended up doing that. I have twins, so they were leaving at the same time. And so I kind of had in my mind this idea that I needed to be preparing for something, but I couldn't do it in that physical space with all of that stuff. An example, in the process, when we were going through everything, I had gotten divorced about 10 years before we went through this process. And I had literally a banker's box of legal files, all of the court documents, all the back and forth during my divorce. And I had held on to that. And that was like a remnant of the past that was tied to all kinds of negative emotion. And so one night we literally got a fire going in the fire pit in the backyard. And I mean, it kind of felt ritualistic and very woo-woo, but we burned it all and it was just gone. It felt so cathartic to not just throw it in the dump, but literally burn it. And so things like all the stuff that they had created, like the little clay figures, the clay elephant in art class in second grade. The kids and I, we literally opened all those boxes together in our kitchen. We laughed, we reminisced, we took silly pictures, we took pictures of everything, and we let it go. We just threw it away, and we did it together. And once it was gone, there was just this kind of, I don't want to overstate it, but like just this openness and this sense of opportunity and kind of being untethered from the past. And it really created the opportunity then to be in a different space altogether, one we knew was temporary, to be like, okay, what are the options? What are the possibilities? And we could just get creative with that without any literal physical or emotional burden to the past.
We talked about that a little bit in our last decluttering episode. And one of the conclusions that Karen and I came to was it's like all this stuff, right? Like the picture of the turnip that my daughter drew in preschool, the pretzel reindeer, like whatever the hell it was, like they don't have this big ol' emotional attachment to it that we do. They're like, oh, that's cute. Next bin, right? And Karen, didn't you do something where you like had your kids, they were the ones that threw it away or something? I'm trying to remember what you did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They were
and
they were way more ruthless than I was. Like, I'm like, here's your essay from third grade, blah, blah. And they're like, toss it, Mom. Are you kidding me? I feel like, Natasha, that ritual, because you did it with your kids also.
I love that.
So powerful. I have this little like a mosaic thing that my daughter made literally probably in like third or fourth grade on my porch. And it was a bird bath, and the top part broke off, like it's broken. And I walked past it and I'm like, I really need to throw that away. She would not give a shit if I threw that away, and I really need to. So but I love that visual of you sitting around the fire with your kids, because it's kind of like you're just stepping into this new chapter. And I don't know, that's really powerful.
No, I love that. And I think that that's part of this is this piece of being emotionally attached, and how do you begin to let that go? And I like that. So I think it's that first step. Like, as we've been talking, like I've been going through my brain about like the clutter that I need to get rid of. And sometimes for me, it's just like, oh my God, where do I even start? Right. So I know you've kind of structuralized. Okay. Thank you. There's actually an English word for what I was trying to say. Let's try that again, Coricello. Jesus, mother, structuralized.
Come on, dictionary queen.
Good
What are you doing?
God, I'm losing it. You have developed a system for those 3 stages of the decluttering process. I believe you call it purge, organize, and maintain. Could you break it down for us and share some tips for each stage?
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to start with the hardest, right? The hardest is purging. For years, I was all about, well, if I just organized everything, things would be good, right? And what I had to realize was that I didn't need any more bins from Target. I needed to actually get rid of some stuff. So really, that's the hardest part. It's the work you do in the purge stage that is going to determine whether or not you're able to maintain this new lifestyle, this new habit of not holding on to things or accumulating things. Because the purging is where you have to get really brutally honest about your relationship with stuff. And that's going to hurt for a little while. I really had to come to terms with why I was buying things, why I was having trouble letting go of things. And so I kind of equated or aligned. I'm not sure what the word is.
See, it's not just me that's failing in the dictionary tonight.
No. Well, I mean, we could have an entire discussion about perimenopause and word retrieval, but we're not going to do that. But basically, you have to break up with your relationship with stuff and create a new relationship with stuff. That's the work, the emotional work. And then there's the actual task of getting rid of stuff, right? And so practically speaking, the way that works best for me, and it's the way I continue to maintain the amount of stuff in my house, and when things get a little bit crazy, this is what I revert back to, is I go by category. What I'll do is I'll go around the house and find literally everything in a particular category and put it all in one place, whether it be putting it all on a bed or on a table in the dining room or whatever it is. I get my eyes on everything. At the beginning of the winter, I collect all the winter coats, all the winter hats, all the scarves, anything, right? And I put it all in one place and I say, okay, what can go and what can stay? And I actually like doing that one at the beginning because there's then an opportunity, and we're going to talk about the donating piece, there's an opportunity for me to give it to coat drive, right? If I wait till the end of the season, nobody wants my leftover coats at that point. So there's a little strategy to when I take the opportunity to look at an entire category of items. And I like starting with textiles, not clothing, textiles. So things like bedding, extra curtains you might have, towels, shower curtains you might have collected, pillows, basically anything that's cloth that's not your clothes, and putting all of that together and figuring out what do you have, what do you need, and taking it from there. So at this point, and we're in the maintain stage now, I have one set of sheets for my bed. I don't have a backup set. I take them off on Saturday or Sunday, I wash them, and I put them right back on. In that regard, that's kind of like where you're going in the long run after you get through this whole process. Once you do categories and you start with the least emotional attachment, by the time you get to the category that's more likely to have emotional attachment connected to it, you've built up that muscle and you've gotten some wins around getting rid of things. And so it's a little easier when you get to the emotional piece. After you have gotten everything together, the purging comes in, and I recommend 3 piles: a keep pile, a donate pile, and a toss pile. Now, I will say that one of the things that got me into the situation I was in back in 2015 was that I had a sell pile, because I really got attached to the idea that I had spent a lot of money on some of these things and I needed to recoup some of that money. And that became a huge barrier for me. And I will say there are still times when I sell things, but I don't get totally tied up in needing to sell it in order to get rid of it. I'll try to sell it. If no one buys it, it's gone. So basically, you're going to have three piles: your keep, your donate, and your toss. And I recommend that before you even start a category, you figure out where you're going to donate it to. Because that's another thing that I got really stressed out about. I didn't want things going into the landfill if I could avoid it. And actually, so Karen, you had mentioned the Method Seattle woman on Instagram during the first podcast. Yes. And I started following her. One of the things she said the other day was that you're not actually avoiding it going into the landfill if you hold on to it. You're just delaying it.
I saw that. Mic drop.
Yeah, mic drop, exactly.
Well, and can we talk about the garage sale thing for just a brief moment? Okay.
I love garage sales.
Okay.
I love them.
However, raise your hand if you've ever made money off a garage sale that even approximates the time that you spend doing it. The last garage sale I had, I was gonna have a good garage sale when we moved here. I made nothing, and the universe broke my foot. I was literally walking back on my driveway and I slipped and my foot cracked in half. And I was like, okay.
To make money. You're not going to make money in a garage sale unless you have
okay, but at least
you have to do it for the love.
But at least get my time back. It's a lot of freaking time to organize for those things. And for me, between the broken foot and the time, I was like, I'm out. I'd rather donate. Or I do reverse garage selling. When I find stuff that I think someone would like, I ask them if they want it and then they take it away. Not to just give them more crap, but literally people that would actually really want it. I ain't got time for, girl, that's next level,
and you
man.
feel good when you do that. When you know somebody that has a need and you can fill it, it's like a win-win. But I mean, something might be wrong with me, but I literally love having garage sales. I just do. I love the people that you meet. I love getting rid of stuff. I love people buying something for 50 cents and they're stoked. I don't know. I'm weird that way. But, you can also have a virtual garage sale. I did this when Tony moved in with me because I, like you, Natasha, I moved in with my fiance 2 summers ago, I think it was now. And we both had 2 full lives that we were trying to merge. And so I did virtual garage sales. I posted all this stuff on all these Facebook groups, and you just post a picture. They come and get it, exchange the money and the stuff, and it's perfect.
That's a good point, though, because you have made a financial investment in some of your things. I have this lovely panini maker that I thought would be a great idea, but I'm really not supposed to eat gluten and cheese, so I probably don't need a panini maker. And
that makes the gluten and cheese better.
It does. and some butter. It's all the things I can't eat. But I've had this out on the yard sale twice because we do have a community-wide yard sale, and I will often participate in it. And some years I make a couple $100 on a Saturday morning, and some years I make $20. Here's the key. None of that stuff ever comes back in my house, right? And so it will go from the end of my driveway to my truck to the place where I donate. And so that's one of the things in the purging process that's really important. Line up where you're going to get rid of stuff before you actually make the pile. So I think in your other episode, you talked about driving around with stuff in your car, right? You've made the decision to get rid of it, but then where does it go?
Yeah.
And so for me, that was also a huge block. I didn't want it to go in the landfill. I didn't want it to go to Goodwill because I have opinions about Goodwill. And I certainly wasn't going to the Salvation Army. What I found was a thrift shop in the community next door to ours that is run or was started by a gentleman whose son has Down syndrome and recognized that there just weren't enough jobs for his son and his son's friends and created this lovely little thrift shop. They've actually outgrown their first space and are in an even bigger space. And they create jobs for young people who have developmental delays and disabilities. And I feel so good giving them good stuff, right? Like Goodwill, I'm like, I just don't want it to go in the landfill. I'll let them put it in the landfill. No, I want this particular thrift shop to make money and keep doing what it's doing. And so I feel good giving them the thing that maybe I could have made $20 on Facebook Marketplace. Now, don't get me wrong. There's definitely some things that I'll throw out on Facebook Marketplace first. And if they don't get grabbed up pretty quick, because it's kind of like that, either people want it or they don't, and it will go to the thrift shop. But I'm not giving them my junk. I'm okay now with that. There are some things that just need to go in the landfill or they need to go in the recycle bin, and whatever happens to them, because I'm not going to let my problem become my kid's problem and have them have to put it in the landfill. So we may as well get that piece over with now.
Hey, fabulous Drinks with the Girls listeners. Guess what? We have something exciting happening here at Drinks with the Girls. We have a way for you, our listeners, to be involved. We would love you to be a part of our Drinks with the Girls support team. Creating a sisterhood of empowered women is our goal, and we are so grateful you are here. But we need your help to grow this incredible community that we have a big and bountiful vision for.
You can help us get the word out about Drinks with the Girls because we want all women to feel the support of our powerful community behind them. Here's what you need to do. Go to your favorite podcast platform and subscribe or follow Drinks with the Girls if you haven't already. We need you to share every episode we put out.
We would love for you to do this, especially when a particular episode resonates with you and or brings to mind someone you care about that you think would benefit from listening to it. Share with a girlfriend via text, share to your email newsletter, share on your socials, share from the rooftop. Every share is a chance for all women around the world to feel connected and supported by our Drinks with the Girls sisterhood.
The other thing you can do is officially join our Pod Squad email list. That will help you in two ways. First off, every time a new episode drops, you'll get an email with info on the topic, so it reminds you to tune in and listen with an easy-to-follow link. But it's also an easy format to hit forward on and share with some of your favorite people so they can easily access the newest episode. That link is always included in our show notes for you.
We are so excited to have you as part of the Drinks with the Girls Pod Squad support team. We are all in this together. Cheers!
Cheers! We actually have a plan to declutter our truck. We paid the truck off, like it's gone in a year. So we've got a year to get all this crap out of here. And after that, we're downsizing the car. So like it's this weird, twisted kind of motivation to just haul the big loads of crap out of there. Cause I'm like, we do not need a truck anymore. I don't have horses anymore. I don't need to pull a trailer. I don't need to pull a camper. So we'll see. Check me in a year and see if you can hold me accountable to that one. That's the plan, at least.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a perfect example, right? Because that's a great example of that is a connection to the life that you led in the past that no longer is the life you're creating now. And so why keep it? Buy the car or the convertible or the whatever that is going to drive you to the new part of your life, the next phase.
Okay, I have a question. So I know you're going to talk about step 2, but I have a question before you do that, okay? Because this is my, albatross, okay? My house is on the small side, and my storage space sucks. I just don't have good storage, and that is where my organization and decluttering habits go to die because I just really, really struggle with trying to figure out good ways to organize it. So I'm sure you've got some super tips for me and my listeners. So I'm looking forward to this next bit.
I might rub you a little bit wrong here, but
It's all good.
Organizing is a lot easier when you have less stuff.
For
So
sure.
you
For sure.
have to be brutal. You have to be brutal in the purge phase. There's so much stuff we think we need that we really don't, right? Once you do get to the point where you're organizing what you've decided to keep in a really intentional way, and you get to go to Pinterest. Then you get to create the labels and buy the nice organizers and get the basket to put the towel in. But one of the things that has been incredibly helpful for me when it comes to organizing beyond the, making the spaces that you can see or access, attractive, is the method of putting the things you use the most within reach and the things that you use the least far away. So, for example, my Instant Pot is on my kitchen counter. I use it 3 or 4 times a week at minimum. I'm not hauling it out of a cabinet or taking it out of a closet every time I need to use it. It lives on my kitchen counter. My serving platters, it's just me and my husband. We're making our meals out of the dish that I cooked it in and putting it directly on a plate. There's no middle serving dish. All my serving dishes are in the basement. And if I need them, I'll go get them. But I probably only use them once a month, if that. It may actually be that I'm only using them on holidays. So
am I the only one that's never used the middle dish? Like unless it is a holiday, I'm sorry, there are no serving dishes.
See,
it goes from the pot to the plate.
My mom was the queen of the middle management level of dishes.
And Lord, well, who's watching that? She is.
Thank you. Thank you.
No.
And then it was like, Lisa, could you do the dishes? I was like, we wouldn't have so many freaking dishes if you didn't have a freaking serving spoon and a freaking ramekin for everything.
And this is coming from the woman who went to a college that has its own china.
Thank you very much. So, exactly.
Clearly, we can change, right? So basically, the idea with organizing is once you have the essentials, yes, go to Pinterest, get ideas to make it cute and pretty. My one set of sheets does not need a spot in my linen closet because it's always on my bed, right? And so I have plenty of room for toilet paper. Once you do that, you go to the next category. But the key is you purge and organize the entire category. You don't purge, let all the stuff sit around, go to the next category, start purging that. You purge the category, you organize the category, then you go to the next category. Because even if you're going to do the nuclear option and you're going to blast through this, your world will be complete and total chaos if you don't do both of those steps to completion in each category before you go to the next one.
I think that might be my fatal mistake. I think
my
that might be
room.
Yeah,
looks like a bomb went off in it right now because I did the purging part. I got in. It's all the stuff that you have no place for, so you put it in the laundry room cabinet, and now it's all sitting out on the counter, and it's been there for like a week.
Yeah,
I just put it all in the trash bin
because I'm organizing mine geographically, right? Like I'm gonna organize this corner, and I feel like it's like this merry-go-round.
And the risk, especially if you're at kind of DEFCON 1, and you've got a lot of stuff, the risk is that if you go room by room, you will either over purge in a room or potentially under purge in a room because you don't actually know all of the things that you have in that category because you haven't done the work of going through the whole house and getting them all into one place. And that's how you end up with 3 Le Creuset Dutch ovens this did not happen to me. If I had a Le Creuset Dutch oven,
I was like, girl, mail it to me. I will take it.
No, I don't have 3 of those. I do have 3 air fryers, though. And I probably only need 1.
My mom has silver. And it's like, oh, and you will get my silver. And I never had the heart to be like, I don't want your fucking silver.
Right.
You know?
And now I have it, and my kids don't want it.
Like, polishing the silver? Are you high? You can't even eBay that shizzle. Like,
Can't.
And I'm like, what am I going to do with this and the china and this? I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do with all this crap that I have to get rid of that's hers?
Donate.
You're going to donate it to a nice thrift shop, and somebody is going to buy it from the thrift shop, and then that's their problem.
I need to learn about these nice thrift shops that you speak of. I'm sure they're around here. I just haven't seen them.
I have one just like Natasha's. Literally, it's in town. It's for adults with developmental disabilities. They take the donations on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 10:30 and 2:30, and I make sure to get there on those days so I'm not driving around with all the stuff in my car. And it's fantastic. Easier to do it when you feel good about where you're taking the things. And I think you are more choosy about it. You look at it and you're like, would somebody else want this? No, this is a piece of crap. I'm throwing it away.
So, okay, like back to basics. Like, how would you private thrift shops? Like I'm just trying to in my mind think of how would I find these places? Because I just for the life, I'm sure they're there, but
I mean, literally, you Google it, right? Is the first step.
Private thrift shop, or what would you?
Just thrift shop. It'll come up.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to Google thrift shop near me, Corey's Closet, which is my go-to, would come up.
Doing it now.
I do it. Yeah. I go on Yelp too.
Yep. Or ask in your local community Facebook group, ask your friends. But even this, so the other day, we're actually in the process of getting ready to sell our house again. So we're doing a lot of, purging again, a lot easier this time. Let me tell you, the irony is about 9 years ago is when we did this the first time. And so on my Facebook memories, even today, there was a picture of the back of the pickup truck full on the way to the dump. And it's so funny that we're kind of doing it again at the same time 9 years later. But one of the things I've managed to collect recently, I have a lot of prescription eyeglasses. Either my prescription has changed or they're not, really the style anymore. And it was easy. There was a little bin at the community center for the Lions Club, and you just threw them in there. Lions Club around here anyway doesn't do that anymore. So I had to do some research. I sat down for about 20 minutes with my computer, and I found a place that I can mail these prescription glasses to, and they will repurpose them. And so I literally actually even offered up to some of my friends. I was like, hey, I'm putting together a box to go to this place. If any of you have old prescription glasses laying around, I will take them and box them and send them to this place in Wisconsin, I think, or something. You're right, Karen. I mean, if I can feel good about where I'm putting the things, it makes it so much easier. Even a consignment shop I found for women's clothing, which can we have a moment for the fact that anything more than 20 years old is considered vintage? My concert t-shirt from wherever is vintage now. I'm not okay with it. This particular consignment shop, pretty high end. It's right downtown in our little main street. I practically can't afford to shop there, but I had some nice pieces from work years ago that no longer fit. They were kind of classic. I was like, I'm going to give it a shot. If the stuff doesn't sell or she doesn't want it, the charity that she donates to is charity for women who have come out of domestic violence situations and need work clothing. I felt really good about that charity. I felt really good about the process. I didn't have to stand there and have her reject the things that I thought were nice. She's just going to pass them on to this charity. And literally, I just have to park my car, take my bag in, put it on her counter, say, hey, how you doing? And walk out.
Excellent. So I think you have to just do a little bit of the legwork to find the places like that.
Yeah, but they do exist. All right. So the last stage is maintenance. And maintenance is actually easier than you think, assuming you've really done the work in the purge stage to break up with stuff, right? When you break up with your stuff, you stop shopping for that quick dopamine hit. Your tolerance for stuff cluttering your home goes way down. And you know what to do when you do need to cull things, when things do start to accumulate. You've worked that muscle. You've learned those steps to find the place to give the stuff away to. If you really do the work in that first 2 stages, maintenance really does become easier. If you just kind of burn through and buy the bins and organize everything, and you don't change the behavior that got you or the habits that got you into that place in the first place, you're just going to revert back. It's kind of like lottery winners who blow all the money, right? They didn't have a good relationship with money in the first place. And so when they got a whole bunch of it, they didn't keep it. You can then get into routines. The example I gave earlier, I purge all my winter outerwear at the beginning of winter. when there's still coat drives and places that actively are looking for winter clothing, not at the end of the season when nobody wants it. Like seasonal shifts. I live in the Northeast, so I have 4 distinct seasons. So it's really easy for me to say, oh, I got to go get my summer clothes. I'm going to get rid of my winter clothes before I put them in the bin or, in the other closet for that off season. The other thing that can help with maintenance, and I think, Lisa, maybe you had talked about this in your first episode, the 1 in, 1 out rule. If you bring something in, something else has got to go. If you buy a pair of shoes, find a pair of shoes to get rid of. I have a client who loves to thrift, and she can easily come home with 4 pairs of shoes after a thrifting run. I say to her, well, which 4 pair of shoes are you going to get rid of? And she's like, well, can I get rid of 4 books instead? Yeah, you can, but that's not going to help the fact that you don't have room for the shoes you already have in your closet. But yeah, the 1 in, 1 out rule is also a great way to kind of be in that maintenance phase.
I love that you are addressing the maintenance phase because I don't think we hear enough about that. And I think especially with Amazon, how you can literally think, hey, I need a new spatula, or I really want this cute little shelf thing, or wow, look at that sweater. It's only $29, right? And so with and it could be here tomorrow. You don't even have to get off your couch. So I think with Amazon, a lot of things are coming in, but not a lot of things are going out. And so I love that you talk about the maintenance phase because we have to really look at how did I get to this place and how did I get here in the first place? Like, what habits do I have? What's my mindset? What am I thinking about all this stuff? How did I get here? Right? So I'm so appreciative that you talk about maintenance.
Yeah, Karen. I mean, I think that's huge. It's that idea of, when you're in that relationship breakup phase where you're talking about and really thinking about your relationship with things, it's about why are you acquiring things and why are you having difficulty letting go of things? Amazon makes its money on the dopamine hit that we get with 1-click buy or even 3 clicks, right? Because actually I'm getting 3 dopamine hits when I get to click it 3 times and literally it will show up. I use Amazon to my advantage as much as possible. I ordered groceries at 2:00 yesterday afternoon and they were on my doorstep at 8 p.m. at night. So I'm going to get my dopamine hit that way and save myself an hour at the grocery store. But really it is about the behavior and the habit that got you in that situation in the first place. And certainly there are extenuating circumstances, 2 households coming together, the remnants of a trip overseas that got derailed, right? All of that can be significant stuff all at once. My experience, and I can really only speak from my experience, right? Ultimately, and the experience of friends that I've helped through this and clients, but energy that you have in your home, when you can walk into your home and say, I feel restored when I'm here. I feel relaxed when I'm here. This is the place I want to be. You get fiercely protective of that, in my experience, so that you, as soon as you see that pattern of, oh my gosh, there's a little more stuff here than I need. And why is that, why do I have 3 air fryers, right? And then you act on that because you know what you're warding off. You know what you're protecting in the space that you've created. And so your acquisition of things kind of changes at your core level. You think differently about what you bring into your home at that point.
Hey there, I'm Lisa Coricella McDowell, your midlife Pacific Northwest princess, here to guide you in the art of next leveling your life. I'm passionate about women's health and wellness in midlife, especially for moms parenting kids with unique needs like I do. I truly believe we can learn, grow, advocate, and care for the planet while taking care of ourselves and our families, and I'd love to help you do the same. Plus, I'm beyond excited to announce the launch of my new membership, the Empowered Parent Collective, this March. It's a space for parents to confidently advocate for their kids, build inclusive communities, educate themselves, and find balance and support along the way. To find out more about the Empowered Parent Collective, my classes, wellness offerings, parenting tips, advocacy resources, and exclusive Drinks with the Girls goodies, head to nextlevellifewithlisa.com. Let's survive and thrive in the messy middle together. Cheers. And I think this all gets a little complicated when you're living with people who kind of have a different idea of clutter. Like, I am already in full PTSD mode because my father is a freaking hoarder and has a huge house. And I can't even go over to his house anymore for a lot of reasons. But I walk in there and I just my throat starts closing up because I'm just like, who needs like 20 hand sculptures?
So I think that is such a good question. How do you navigate that when you have relationships with people that have kind of a different idea or are not learning the things that we're learning here on Drinks with the Girls? Because my fiance and I have very different ideas of what constitutes clutter. He is a collector, air quotes. Like, and literally, he has cabinets and we have a whole room, guest bedroom, and I'm going to call it the 70s room because he has cabinets full of nostalgic toys. You know, the
Oh,
GI Joes and the Matchbox. I
Oh
mean,
my
like
Lord.
so much stuff. He has the laminated directions. He has the boxes intact. Like and he wants to leave it to his kids. I'm like, your kids don't want it. They want the cash. So anyway, how do you navigate this when the person that you live with has a different idea, what constitutes clutter?
yeah, that's a great question. And we talked a little bit at the beginning, when I was sharing with you some of the research that I've done. And so one of the things that heterosexual male-female relationship, there are differences in the way men and women perceive clutter, perceive visual stimuli. Those differences are really good to surface and recognize and talk about. My husband and I have very different experiences of clutter. He, back in 2015, when we were living in that house together, he was not unhappy. The stuff everywhere didn't bother him. And yet I was crying myself to sleep every night. One thing I learned is I was not doing a good job communicating how unhappy I was about that situation. And I have to admit, at that time, given the stress that it was causing me, I didn't communicate it well. I was kind of a crazy lady about it. But since then, I've not only learned like the science that we talked about, but I've learned how to communicate it to him in a way that's a little more reasonable, But basically, the clutter doesn't bother him. It doesn't cause the same kind of stress that it causes me when I look around and I see it. And he is certainly more attached to things from the past than I am. He's got a little bit of a kind of hockey player, hockey coach superstition bent to him. He's just very connected to some objects, right? His father passed away about 3 years ago, and we've collected a huge amount of hunting, fishing, outdoorsman stuff that his father had collected over 80 some years. And actually some of his grandfather's fishing stuff is in our basement now, and a boat and 2 engines for said boat. Like we've accumulated a lot of stuff in the last few years. And he's a total clothes horse. And I am not. I have very few items of clothing. Probably for the number of shirts he has, I have that number of total articles of clothing. So really, it's come down to 2 things for us. It's come down to communication and compromise. So for a long time, I thought he understood how the clutter was affecting me, and he didn't. I literally would share things with him about it. And so that's kind of how I start the conversation. But now we've gotten to the point where we've talked about it enough, and I'm doing this work so he kind of understands that it does impact us differently. And so just that awareness has really helped because it makes it a lot easier when I now say to him, honey, our bedroom is kind of out of control. I need you to put away all your laundry. And he gets it, right? It's not me nagging him. It's me. He now knows that I'm communicating to him that this space is stressful for me and that I can't relax in that space. That's kind of released the tension between us. And that way I don't think he's being passive aggressive, and he doesn't think I'm being a major B when I ask him to clean something up, because he understands that it's about my stress level and my comfort level. So the compromise that we've come to, and I think, Karen, this might really be reflective of you and Tony's differences, we've decided that there are certain common spaces where essentially it has to be at the level of the person who's going to feel the most stress if it's cluttered. So basically, like, the living room has to be clutter-free. I can't be in that space after a very difficult day at a stressful job and see clutter and be able to relax. So if we want to sit on the couch together and watch TV, it needs to be clutter-free. Otherwise, I can't sit down and relax. There are certain common spaces where we kind of have an agreed upon norm of what it has to be. And that's basically my norm because I'm the one who's going to be stressed out, not him. I also have to compromise in that there are spaces that he gets to be himself in, and I have to be okay with that. His truck is a disaster. I can't actually drive in his truck. We have to take my truck if we go anywhere. The basement, it's a mess. It's his mess. It's actually not a mess. It's a mess by my standards. By his standards, he knows where things are. But I'm okay with that. There's nothing I need down there really, honestly, other than the stuff I have that I don't need in my kitchen regularly. And that's the way I need it to be. So when I go down there and get my thing, the rest of it is all his. And so we've kind of come to this not only understanding about how it affects us differently, ways to communicate that don't raise our defensiveness, and an agreement. And I know this comes from a extreme place of privilege, that we have our own spaces that can be the way they need to be. So that's kind of how we've managed it.
I love that. I'm definitely going to use that moving forward. So another challenge is finding the time to declutter, because life is busy. It's overwhelming. And for me, like what I'll do, like what I did in the laundry room, and it's laundry room / overflow stuff. So I start doing it and then I just leave all the crap out for weeks and weeks. How do you suggest people carve out time to do this work?
And that is hard, right? Because I think if I had done a little bit at a time, we'd still be living in that house and I still wouldn't be done. So for me, it needed to be the nuclear option. And for us, that was 6 months of this was all we did, was get rid of. It was that bad. I mean, we probably borderline hoarders, though, other than the house was clean. It was 6 months while we were, both working full time and raising kids. That was the nuclear option for us. I think for us, that worked because of kind of the extreme situation we had gotten ourselves into. So I wonder if some of it is the kind of assessment of the current situation that someone finds themselves in and determining the level of response based on that, right? So like if you're at a point where it's pretty bad and you really need to make some significant changes for whatever reason, you might need to go nuclear and really just say, you know what, for the next few months, this is what we're going to do around our life, but this is what we're going to do. If it's not that case, like you're like, this is annoying, but it's not, end of the world. You set yourself a deadline and maybe it's a year, maybe it's 6 months, and then reverse engineer it from there. You start with the least emotional because you build that muscle of letting go of things with the things that matter the least, so that by the time you get to the things that are really more challenging to get through, you've got that habit built, you've gotten some wins, and you always do both steps in each category to fruition. Finish that category before you start the next one, which also helps with it not being total chaos, because it will be a certain amount of chaos no matter what you do if you endeavor to really do this from start to finish. Little tricks that I learned along the way, I take a lot of before and after pictures. I give myself a lot of rewards. I work with my clients and I say, well, what's your reward going to be when you do this task? I'm a very externally driven person, so I like rewards. I'll get 3 or 4 photos from literally 9 years ago of the kids' artwork they made when they were 6, right? And so having those photos actually creates more of an opportunity for me to connect to those memories because of the way that app works, or Facebook, because I take a lot of pictures and I put them on Facebook. One of the few things I like to do on Facebook at this point is look at the memories and see what pops up. I'm actually interacting with those things that I took pictures of and threw away more than I would if they were in a box in the basement.
I think that's really the piece. I mean, Karen and I have talked about this. Both of our moms had very distinctive writing, and they were both English majors, and they wrote and things. And so for us, like anything that they've written is just like sacred, right? Like I have a couple canning lids that I keep in my drawer here because they've got her writing in it, and it's so distinct. And so I know and I don't want to speak for Karen, but I know like she has a lot of books from her mom's collection, and like if her mom's writing is in there, ain't going nowhere. So that's rough. Like I have gotten to the point where I take the pictures of the kids' stuff. Like I can handle that part, but like I just don't see a world when I think I'm going to be able to like give away something that has my mom's writing in it.
I have such a good hack for that. So I just got together with my college besties this past weekend. We get together every MLK weekend. And one of my besties, shout out to Annie, because she heard our first decluttering episode and she knows I struggle with this. She said, rip out the pages. And I mean, I know this is blasphemous for those of us who are book people, but that have my mom's writing in them and put them like in a collage style picture frame. And
That's
also,
beautiful.
another thing that has really helped me with all this decluttering stuff that I think it may have been Annie or one of my other girlfriends this past weekend said, because here in Southern California, we've been having nasty, nasty wildfires. Somebody said, if your house burnt down in a fire, would you replace that thing? And that was like, that kind of blew me backwards. And I mean, this is my goal for 2025 is to really get this in order for myself. Because like you talked about earlier, Natasha, like I want my home to feel restorative. I want to
Yes.
feel at peace here. And in some rooms, I definitely don't because of all the shit.
Yeah. 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 And that's a hard thing to admit. At least it was for me, right? To
For sure.
recognize, accept that my home was not a home. It was a house full of stuff. And that's two different things, right?
Yes.
So there's kind of two categories when it comes to items like that, I think, like especially things that are either like our kids, which we've talked about is actually easier, ironically, than our parents or family members who have passed. I have two kind of quick stories about that. One is that I had a desk that my great grandfather had made. I somehow acquired this desk when I was about 20 years old. And so I've moved that desk 6 times in my lifetime as an adult. And last weekend, my husband and I took a picture of it. Now, at this point, it's broken. Like the hinges are off, the knobs are broken. And I paid somebody to throw it away. I paid to dump it at the dump after literally carting it around for 32 years because I felt such guilt about this thing that clearly my mother or my grandmother didn't want because they gave it to me. So there's that kind of stuff. So where we just kind of carry the expectation or the responsibility of it generationally, and we never really wanted it in the first place. But for that, take a picture, let it go, right? The other things, the things you're talking about, like our mom's, writing samples. My dad passed away over 20 years ago, and I carried around a lot of his stuff for a very long time. And I was the executor of his estate, like I think you had talked about, Karen. And so I just had everything, right? I carried a lot of that around. And the thing that I had to come to terms with was that the volume of things that I held of his was not a direct correlation to the connection or the grief that I had for him being gone. I didn't have to keep every piece of pottery as a way of saying that this is how much I loved him or this is how much I missed him. And so that really was kind of an aha moment for me. I didn't need everything. I needed a few things that were either represented a connection to him or something that was a shared appreciation that we had. So I kept some pottery pieces, but for a long time, I kept all of the pieces because I didn't know if they had value. I was hesitant to just give them away and be the person who gave away the $10,000 thing that somebody found at the Goodwill shop, right?
On Auntie's Roadshow, right?
Exactly. I had to kind of come to terms with the idea that I might actually be throwing away something quite valuable. But actually, what I did with most of it was consign it. In terms of the handwriting, my friends who have lost their moms have done this, took writing samples and created jewelry from the writing sample. I've seen people get tattoos. If
I
you have
have two
tattoos with
tattoos.
them.
I have two
Yeah.
tattoos of my mom's writing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody's different, right? But for me, it really came down to the idea that the magnitude of items I had did not reflect my love and grief. And so at that point, I was able to go, okay, I'm going to pick a few pieces that mean something and I'm going to let the rest go.
So, Natasha, you've talked about using guided visualization as part of the process. Can you walk us through what that might look like, and especially for people who might be new to guided visualization?
Absolutely. I love this tool for folks that are working on health goals, career, relationship, or an environmental goal like decluttering. And so basically, what I ask my clients to do is to really think about what their home sounds like, feels like, looks like when they think about the different areas of their home and really get deep into all of the senses and all of the emotions. That idea of when I come home, I feel like I can rest. When I come home, it's restorative. And so we really uncover all of the kind of desires and ideas of what that future home will look like. And then I turn that into a guided visualization for them that they can read or listen to, whether it's every morning or, before they're about to take on a category. And basically what that guided visualization looks like is we walk through coming home after work, being in that space that they've envisioned, that they've described to me, walking as if they're living that moment and being in that house so that they can really immerse themselves in how they will feel when the work is done. And so that might look like something, you come home to your kitchen and you're preparing dinner and all the tools you need are in reach and you know where everything is. You can hear the vegetables sauteing. Your sink is empty and it's ready for you to clean up after your meal. And by the time you're done eating, everything is in the dishwasher and you're able to go back to the living room, close down your kitchen, and relax for the evening. And so the idea through the guided visualization is that even though that's not your reality right now, you can hear it, you can smell it, you can feel it, and the brain will work to make that be true. And so by reading it or listening to it or repeating it multiple times through your process, your brain will actively work to do the things that you need to do to make that vision of what you want your home to become a reality.
I love that so much. That's why manifesting, vision boards, visualizing your future are so powerful. And I love that you transfer that to decluttering. Thank you so much, Natasha, for sharing all of your wisdom with us today and your journey. This has been eye-opening for me and definitely inspiring. Before we go, we always give our listeners key takeaways. What would you say are the most important things that people should remember?
Yeah, so absolutely. And thank you so much for this opportunity. I think the three things that I kind of hone in on the most are our relationship with possessions is something we really have to come to terms with, both why we acquire them and why we keep them or why we have a hard time getting rid of them. That's the deep work that leads to the outcomes we're hoping for. The other thing to keep in mind is freeing up our physical space and reducing visual clutter opens up space in our minds and our hearts for us to create the life we truly want. And so that's a very worthy goal as a result of all this hard work. And then the third thing to keep in mind is when all else fails, there's always the nuclear option.
So, Natasha, I'm super excited about this opportunity that you have for our listeners, and I would love for you to share more about it. It's called Zen Your Den, and it's a workshop, right?
Yeah, so I actually have a Zen Your Den workshop, which is a quick 90-minute workshop that I do with folks. You'll be able to find some information about that. And then I'm also creating a longer group coaching course called Midlife Purge, because I think that not only is this important work for all people to create the space in the home that they want, it's particularly powerful and impactful for people, specifically women, in this kind of midlife transitional stage. And so the wait list is available for that opportunity, and I'll also share that.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely put that in the show notes.
Thank you again so much for joining us, Natasha. And to all of our listeners, we hope this episode inspires you, like me, to take the first step toward creating the space that you need, one that is restorative and relaxing and that feels good. And if you found this helpful, you know the drill. Please share with a girlfriend, share to your socials, give us a review. We would love to hear from you. Cheers.
Yes. So definitely, you guys know the drill, but we do need help from you, our pod squad, to grow this fabulous community. You know we love it when you share. Feel free to leave a review, share on your socials. If you go visit your friend and you're like, girl, you need some decluttering, feel free to share this episode with them. Natasha can help them. And we will see you next time on Drinks with the Girls. So cheers.